Hey there YouTube, welcome back to another YouTube video, and this time it's not Black Powder. I'm currently on a little bit of a hiatus from doing Napoleonics. I'm enjoying it, but at the same time there's always that little piece of me chipping away to restart. It just happens that I do have quite a big backlog of things that I really would like to paint up, and one of the things that I really wanted to do was finish up my Team Yankee stuff. Now, one of the things I've been finding with a lot of this Team Yankee stuff is that unless you buy like starter sets, it's actually really difficult to try and get hold of like single packs. I mean, they're not like rare or hard to get theoretically, but unless you order them like direct from Battlefront, so you know, like going to like Wayland or other sort of game stores, you find that most of the time they're out of stock, and it can literally take months for things to come back into stock. And I've found this quite a few times where I've planned out things to try and get in, and everywhere's out of stock, and you don't particularly feel like waiting 2 or 3 months for it to come in. So basically all I've done is I've basically spent the last probably week and a half or so completely painting up most of my Soviet stuff that basically was more or less untouched. And I also finished up a few American bits and pieces too. Now, obviously, the sort of Team Yankee sort of time zone is sort of like the 80s, generally sort of like the sort of earlier part of the 80s. However, when they brought out World War III, the sort of the modernisation of it, you can kind of stretch it to sort of like the 1990s. And that's kind of what I decided to sort of go for. And I also kind of designed it to be sort of desert themed as well. Even though you know, the chances are I probably won't be fighting the desert that often, but I just prefer the sort of paint schemes. Now, I have actually done a video before showing my American stuff, and as you can see before you here, we have 2 Apaches. Now, when I showed in my last video, I actually only completed one of them, and so I actually got round to finishing the second one, which I think is, let me just have a quick look. This is the one. This is the newer one. It's very difficult to tell, obviously, because they're pretty much the same. The only way I can actually tell is because the cockpit's a little bit different, but it's basically the same sort of methods. I think the colour scheme might be a little bit different, but it does look pretty much the same as the first. This was a lot easier for some reason, a lot easier to paint this time. It's not airbrushed, it's just painted with a brush. Although I did, when I was undercoating some of my Russian, when I was doing some of my Russian vehicles, I did undercoat spray paint when I had my airbrush out. I did the rotors and the tail rotor because they were black, but other than that, it's all brush painted. I'm pretty happy with it, and I think together they look pretty cool. Now, one of the additions that I did manage to pick up for my my American force basically has had kind of like basically 2 new additions. These, of course, I already had from the original US Army starter set. So that's the 2 Apaches, they're now complete. The second thing that I picked up, this is sort of one of the slightly newer additions, is some air defense for my Americans, because they're actually really lacking on that. Now, the sort of down point to the sort of Team Yankee range, especially when it comes to air defense, is that the Americans' choices for air defense are actually quite old-fashioned and outdated. So basically, you get the choices of basically so Stingers from like a Humvee platoon, I think. So they were out because I haven't got any Humvees, and I don't particularly want to get some just for air defence. You have the Chaparral, which is a really old based on I think it's an M48 chassis with like 4 sidewinders on, and you also have the Vulcan armed VADs, which is quite popular. I'm sure all of you have seen pictures of that, and also the Sergeant York, which was basically more or less a design failure. Now, probably the most modern of all the choices available to the Americans was what we have before you here, which are basically air defence variants of the LAV, which are basically a Marine Corps option. Now, you can actually have one Marine Corps attachment to your companies or your battalions, so I decided to choose these, and not only do I think that they look the coolest out of all of the well, I mean, I suppose the Vulcan, the old VADs, is kind of hard to beat for coolness, but as far as coolness and effectiveness goes, I think these are a really good choice, because if I bring one in, you can see that they have 2 Stinger tubes, and they also have the same minigun or Vulcan cannon as the M113 VADs. So I think they're a really good choice, and they're quite cool little vehicles. They're basically part plastic, part resin, and you kind of get these sort of normal LAV sprues in the box, and it leaves a lot of stuff on the sprue, because you're basically only using the rear doors and the 2 sets of wheels, and everything else is resin. I did actually magnetise the turrets on these to stop them falling out. I'm not a fan of having, especially resin things. You find that the turrets aren't always that tight fitting, and generally just keep falling off, which is fine, like if you're in a game. But if you're moving them around and stuff, you don't want the turrets to fall off, and potentially if you drop them from a height, perhaps crack or at least minimum sort of damage the paint. So yeah, I mean, they're pretty bog standard. They haven't even got any sort of markings on, but that's the air defence for my Americans sorted, and I'm pretty chuffed with them actually. I think they came out really cool. I'll sort of do a close view of them. So these are the LAV ADS or AD variants. If I could quickly show you the card. You can see that, so here's the card for them. You can see that they have their Gatling gun and also a Stinger missiles, so quite cool, although I suppose it's kind of short range for air defence, but I think the double combination kind of makes up for that. And I really don't like the old, like I say, the much older, outdated choices that you seem to have in the normal sort of US Army list. Okay, so that's all the American stuff out of the way. Now, I do actually have a couple of A10s for my Americans, but they are at present unpainted. I'll just bring one in and show you. When I originally ordered them, I was kind of thinking that they would be the old resin versions, but they actually ended up being like the Academy kit versions. Get the camera up. Here we go. So this is the new version of the A10, and I think the makers Academy. They do this 1/144th scale, I think it is, or one. I don't know what it is. It's quite a small scale. It's out of scale to 15mm, but it makes a good size for the table in a similar sort of way that 1/72 scale aircraft make good air markers for bolt action. It's a similar sort of thing here. They're quite filly little kits, but they do go together quite well. And of course, the thing that separates them from the normal kits is that you get like a clouded cockpit, because you do actually get on the sprue options for the cockpit, which and I've got to say that I was actually surprised with the A10s actually having a little pilot figure in, which really surprised me. but of course, because you have the clouded cockpit, there's no point putting them in. Yeah, I think they're quite cool little models. So that's they're to come, I suppose. I'm not really 100% decided on what colour scheme to use for them at the moment, but they will be coming fairly soon. I'm not going to probably do them straight away, but at least they're built. So I've got 2 A10s to do for left over for the Americans. Right, so now we're sort of going to go on to the Russian force, or the Soviet force. Now, obviously, we all know what's going on in the world, and I've got to say that I did, you know, a couple of times I had to sort of like do a little bit of reality check when sort of painting up sort of Russian forces. But obviously, it's all fictional. They're, you know, it's 1990s. It's a totally fictional world. I mean, I actually had trouble sort of like trying to do Eastern Bloc, because originally I was going to do Eastern Bloc, you know, an Eastern Bloc faction, and again I just couldn't get my mind around it. So in the end I decided to go for Soviets, and like I say, even though my army is kind of desert themed, I have kept the original sort of green look to the Russian vehicles. I was sort of looking around online, and the Russians they've never really been that hardcore on sort of desert schemes. I mean, there are a few flying around. I mean, there's a couple of examples in the Soviet book for Team Yankee, for instance, but I decided in the end to just keep them bog standard and basic, and I think they do the job. The infantry, however, I did actually go for a it is actually a proper uniform, but it was never really brought into service. It was kind of like an experimental uniform, and I kind of went for that for my desert infantry, which does give them a little bit of a desert look. So first up, we're going to go for these 4 BMP3s. Now these guys are a Recon platoon. Originally, I didn't really want them as a Recon platoon. I was going to perhaps expand on them and turn them into an infantry battalion, a motor rifle battalion rather, but I changed my mind. I actually ended up with getting BMP2s for infantry, so these guys kind of became a Recon platoon. Now 2 of these are from my first iteration, from the starter set, and I think that's that would be 300 and 301. So these 2 are from my original. These are for the starter set, the original Team Yankee 2-player starter set, and they're of course originally were going to be a 2-unit Recon platoon, and in this Russian starter set you actually end up getting another 2. Again, they were meant to be a 2-vehicle Recon team. Now I suppose I could make them 2 2s, but the way they've designed with the 2 closed, with the extra 2 closed hatches, it would be kind of difficult to assign one as a sort of the unit leader. So it's probably going to just stay a 4-vehicle platoon. Now, of course, the BMP3 is a little bit of a flawed vehicle. It was one of those vehicles that was designed and never really meant to be an infantry carrier. And one of the sort of the big flaws of it is the incredibly tight doorways and hatchways to actually get in and out of the vehicle. I mean, this is the. I mean, if you look at the back here. You know, you've basically got your 2 little tiny doors at the back there, and I think you've got these 2 hatches on top here, and then of course the commander of the vehicle, who is also the team leader of the infantry in the back. So basically, when these guys debus, the vehicle loses its commander and also some of its combat effectiveness because of that. Now I'm not 100% sure, but I think it could possibly even lose its gunner too, because the gunner is actually one of the infantry squad too, but I could be wrong on that. But I do know that they lose combat effectiveness when the infantry debus. But yeah, I suppose the only good thing about it is it's upped armament over the BMP2. But yeah, so pretty cool vehicles, nice, very nice little models. But that's a 4 vehicle recon platoon of BMP3s. Next up, go for a bit of air defence. So basically, again, in the Russian army starter box, you get 5 BRDM chassis vehicles, which can basically be turned into 3 different variants. They can be turned into the BRDM standard, which comes with, I think I've actually got one of them over here. That's actually an unfinished one. Have I got a finished one? I did actually not decide to use the BRDM variant, but basically this is what the BRDM standard variant comes with. It's basically like a recon vehicle, and it comes with a 14.5 millimeter machine gun, and that's it. So it's not particularly an amazing little vehicle, and it's probably just sitting there like a tin can waiting to be opened up by something. So I decided not to use any of those in my forces, but what I did decide to do is I decided to turn 4 of them into the Gaskin variant, or the SA9 Gaskin variant, which is basically air defence. Now, again, the Russians do actually have some quite good choices within sort of the game for air defence. Obviously, the Shilkas are a classic, but they also have the Tunguska, which is like a really very, very cool looking vehicle. But again, I didn't particularly want to spend out. So I ended up changing 4 of these into 2 units of Gaskins. Now, I think I haven't really sat down and properly planned out my army lists yet, but I think I have to have 2 different sections, or 2 different battalions. So there'll probably be 2 of these in each one. But I suppose I could have a unit of 4 in one if I really wanted. So that's the Gaskins. I'll just give you a quick look at one. So these things are dead easy to build. They're dead easy to paint. They literally only have the number written on the side there as their only sort of transfer you got to put on. And this is, like I say, the Gaskin variant. Now you can actually take this off. Now theoretically, you could put the one of those like turrets on from the sprue. If I can just grab hold of it, there you go. So I mean, obviously this particular one's got missiles on the side, but I suppose you could theoretically put the turret on like that and use it as a BRDM if you really wanted to. Which is why I did actually leave 2 of them without the extra missiles on the side, like the one of the pairs. So theoretically I could do that, because actually kit wise, like if I grab one of those ones, so like this for instance, this is actually no different to the BRDM kit. This is basically a BRDM without the turret. So you could swap it over, but like I say, I probably have no need to ever do that, which is why I just for the option I decided to leave 2 of them without the extra missiles on the side. But it doesn't actually deter from the fact that they're all Gaskins. So that's the air defence element. Okay, next up we'll go for some more BRDM variants. So next up we have a unit of 3 Spandrel. Now these are basically anti-tank missile firing variant of the BRDM2, and again obviously the same model. However, these do have like an extra plate on top which kind of stops you from changing them into BRDMs if you want. But I suppose you could kind of somehow magnetise or blue tack on that bit if you really wanted to turn that many extra ones into BRDM2s. But in this case I haven't, and I decided to use, I did actually have like an extra 2 from getting the new motor rifle box, the motor rifle battalion box, and that's why I got these Spandrels here. Not Spandrel, yeah, Spandrels. So that's the BRDM Spandrels. Next up we're going to go for some tanks. So again, in the newer box set, you got 5 up armoured variants of the T55. So these are T55 AMs, I think. Not particularly very effective, but very cool little model kits. So let's just put these guys out. So we have 1 platoon of 5 T55 AMs. Now if I grab the card for these, there we go, T55 AM. So yeah, it's not super amazing. You can actually fire a anti-tank guided missile from the main gun, which is quite handy. But it's not super amazing tank. I mean, if I were to get out like even the T64 for instance, and I'll get out a T80 as well, you can see that the T64 is considerably more frontal armour. It's the same other than that actually, but it also has I don't know what it is points wise, I'm not sure. But so basically, yeah, this is kind of one of those, I suppose it's a bit like the T64 now. I've got the T64s in the starter set, the 2-player starter set, and I've only got 1 platoon of those. So I guess you could say that both of these are more or less the same versions of sort of like cannon fodder tanks, to take away fire from the perhaps your T80s or whatever. Now if I put the T80 up alongside this as well, you can see the massive difference in especially in frontal armour. But I mean, I suppose none of the armour's super amazing on the side or the rear for either of these. But yeah, that's the way of the tank really, I suppose. So that is T55 AMs, and I'll just give you a quick sort of closer look at one. Beautiful little models. Very easy to put together. A lot of stuff to stick onto the turret, but none of it's difficult. And of course, this one's the team leader or the platoon leader, and of course, it's got its sprue aerial. Like well, all of them got sprue aerials. So that is the T55 AM. Okay, next up, and start heading towards the end now. So next up is the T80 elements of the army. Now again, you basically got some of these in the starter 2-player starter set, and some of them the rest of them are from the Russian starter box. And basically what I've done is I've made enough for 2 platoons and an HQ, and these will probably be like part of a T80 force. Temporarily forgotten what the formation's called. I've got to find a little card. So yeah, battalion actually. So these are basically form part of a T80 tank battalion, and of course the second battalion would be the infantry battalion, which is separate. Now if I could just quickly sort these out. So like I say, there's 2 platoons, each of 4 tanks. There we go. So we have 2 platoons of 4 and a HQ unit of 1. Now 4 of these are from the 2-player starter set. The rest are from the Russian starter box, and basically I painted up 5 of this number. So I had my original, this is the original vehicle that I had already marked up as the HQ unit, and you can tell by the fact that not only is it the lowest of the numbers, but also I've given it all 3 aerials, or all 3 aerial options, to make it stand out as the command tank. And the platoon leaders have 2 aerials instead of 1, which the normal tanks have. So that's the sort of the makeup, and you can see again sort of a basic. This is one of the new ones. This is one of the new ones, because this was added to the. So basically these 4 were in the starter box set, the original 2-player, and then these 4 here and this one make up the 5 that are in the Russian starter set. So we have the. I did actually use a slightly different paint scheme to what I did on my originals, although you can't really tell any difference, even though I did use different paints. I basically used olive drab as a base for these, and then I basically gave them a good dry brushing of Russian green, which is different from the paint scheme they actually offer you in the book, but I actually prefer the look of this paint scheme. Yeah, like I say, they're pretty boring to paint, to tell the truth. They're all the same, which is, I suppose, is one of the reasons why I didn't really paint them all at the same time as my Americans. And I literally just did the ones that were on the starter set. So yeah, I've been sitting on these guys for a while, and it's nice to have them out of the way. So that is the T80s, and that completes the bulk of it. All I have left now to show you is the BMP, the motor rifle companies, of which I will get to in a second. Let's just get rid of these. I'm now actually moved into 2 boxes now for my Russian Team Yankee stuff. They did take up sort of half of a box before, but now they actually completely fill more or less 1 whole box and a good portion of the original box. So let's just get rid of those. now we'll go into a little bit more exciting, I suppose, because this is really, I suppose, the first sort of Team Yankee infantry that I've done. Because even though I've sort of had an American platoon sitting around, I haven't really got the correct vehicles to even make a proper American motorised mechanised company yet. So let's just get the vehicles out. Now, one of these will be, it's this one actually, it's the HQ vehicle, and we'll get the infantry out. Move that off to the side. So basically, the way that the box was designed, these are from the new motor rifle box set, which is a really cool idea. I really hope that they decide to do it for all the nations, because it's a really good way of getting some mechanised infantry into your forces, because to actually build up a mechanised force on its own is actually really pricey. I mean, I think you're looking at between £26 and £28 for a box of 5 either Bradleys or BMPs or whatever, and then you basically need 2 boxes of those, and then you need to get hold of the infantry. And not only are they expensive, but also really, like I say, you really have to sort of invest a lot of time to actually be able to get hold of the things, because they're always out of stock. So this is a really good way of getting some infantry into especially your Russian forces, and I hope if they decide to do it for the other nations, it would be a really good idea, because you could basically buy a mechanised company for your British, for your Germans, for your Americans, etc., and it'd be a really cool way of, I mean, it's not the best of options, because like a lot of people were saying, and I've never actually played Team Yankee, but I've watched a fair few videos on it and stuff, but basically the way that they've gone about it is, instead of having a proper motor rifle company, which would have what you see here, and also some stands of PKM heavy machine guns, they've actually kind of cheaped out and thrown other stuff into the box that they could have perhaps thought about and swapped things around and actually filled out the actual infantry element, rather than putting, like for instance, the actual box set itself came with those T55s, the 2 of the Gaskins, and also 2 Frogfoots. And perhaps if they'd thought about it a little more, they could have perhaps put in perhaps some artillery instead of the Frogfoots, and the proper PKMs, and maybe even a few extra BMPs to sort of perhaps even beef that out again, to give it even extra sort of support weapons. But instead they've kind of gone for the 2 separate motor rifle companies, rather than a motor rifle battalion style setup. So let me just find a card. So here we go, here's a BMP 2 motor rifle company, and I was talking about the PKM teams. Now if you buy the 2 separate companies, this is what you get. So you'd get 2 platoons of 4, or well, single platoons actually. You'd get, so basically you're buying 4 BMP 2s, and then you've got your company HQ. So you're taking like the bare minimum of choices, and therefore you suffer by just having regular infantry. So these 4 BMPs have basically have 4 rifle squads, which are AKs and RPKs, and I think they have RPG-18s, which are like kind of like the Heat, the 66 law, and then you get 3 stands of RPGs, which you can actually upgrade to is it 8 VRs, so RPG 7 VRs are slightly better. I think it costs an extra point or something, and then of course you've got your sort of section leader or platoon leader, which would be this chap here, and then all the rest are just normal rifle teams with a squad leader on each, and then the 3 RPG teams. So let's give you a closer look at stuff. So this is the battalion command. I decided to put like the colonel looking figure in. He's probably a captain actually. Again, the bog standard basic sort of setup, and just to sort of to compare, if you remember when I showed you the BMP3, the back doors in BMP2, although still pretty cramped, are probably double the size of the BMP3, and also you probably got the 2 hatches on top there. Again, probably half a size bigger again than the BMP3. And yeah, so pretty cool. Again, pretty cool model. And of course, there's only 1 spot for an aerial on these, but because I put the colonel in, or the captain with the flat cap, he can denotes as the sort of the HQ vehicle, and I've put him in the that experimental camouflage I was talking about, which is kind of like a deserty colour, sandy coloured uniform with like these sort of like brown sort of splotches all over, and I sort of bring in a closer look. So this is like the well, my iteration of that sort of camouflage that I found online, and also I've upgraded their weapons a little bit. So basically the AK-74 that the sort of Cold War guys, the earlier Cold War guys had, visible by the obviously the woodwork and the magazine, the wooden sort of magazine, had changed to a slightly more modern version of the rifle, but it basically looked exactly the same, but it did actually have like black furniture and a black magazine. Now I kind of did a sort of a hybrid version, so it's got the wooden stock and handle but a black magazine, and yeah, I was quite happy with that. And I actually swapped out 2 figures. So these 2 figures here are actually from the Plastic Soldier Company Soviet set, because I wanted to make my command group a little bit unique by having different figures. And I think, actually thinking about it, that I think there was actually some command figures down actually in the box. So yeah, that's the command section, and I've put some little donations on the back. So on the back of the infantry bases, I'll show you in a second, I've just got like a colour, and it just denotes which platoon they're from. So these guys are all from a red platoon, and the second platoon I've got the blue mark, just so you can tell them apart basically. But yeah, so that is the and oh, you can see obviously I've given them like a very basic sort of deserty base using some desert compound. Funnily enough, the AK Sandy desert compound. So to give this a try, this stuff here. So I haven't really got any sort of suitable foliage or anything for 15mm. So I've decided at the moment to just leave them like this. However, in the future, if I do get some, it's not going to be too difficult to just add some to the bases. But yeah, I was pretty happy with them. Very simple basing sort of system. The figures themselves weren't particularly difficult to paint, just a little bit fiddly here and there, but I did sort of batch paint a lot of them. I mean, it's very difficult to sort of try and put massive amounts of detail onto them. So they're kind of pretty basically painted. They're more or less sort of table level, I'd say. And of course, the commanders of the normal platoons again are in their camouflaged gear, because, like I was saying, the commanders of the vehicles are generally the squad leaders of the unit. So when they debus, they actually wouldn't be there anymore. Because as strange as Soviet doctrine goes, is unlike a lot of vehicles or nations' tactics, the BMPs basically stayed with their infantry, where sometimes you get they're basically dropped off and then sort of pull back or go to a different position for sort of fire support or whatever. But the old Soviet doctrine of the massed pushes, they basically sit there with their infantry, losing their commanders, so they're not quite as combat effective. But yeah, it's nice to have some infantry. It's something that I've always wanted to try and get my hands on before I start playing a game. But yeah, I mean, that's probably more or less where my my collection will end. I might possibly get maybe one unit of artillery for them, because I haven't got any artillery. I've actually got a couple of frogfoots just to show you as we sort of come to the end of the video, and I've also got unpainted still another couple of frogfoots, because lucky, if you remember me saying that the motor rifle battalion box came with an extra 2 frogfoots. Let's just actually bring one in. So this is what they look like unpainted. Again, it's one of those sort of academy kits. It's quite a nice model. This one doesn't have a pilot. It has like a cockpit box, a chair and a joystick. But again, because of the clouded cockpits, there's no point putting it in, really. I gotta say, these are slightly easier to build than the A10s. They're pretty self-explanatory, really. There's a couple of bits that were difficult. I found that the undercarriage doors didn't fit into the holes particularly well. So I had a lot of trouble trying to get those to fit sort of squarely, or fit at all, really. I had to sort of do some trimming and filing. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward little kit, and I actually quite like them. I think they're quite cool, and the sort of flying base, you stick the neck onto the bottom of the aircraft, so it's nice and secure. You don't need to do any drilling or anything, and that just pops onto the pole like that, which is slightly different from some of the helicopter attachments, which attach with magnets. So yeah, that's the basic SU25. So I've got 2 of those unpainted, and then I have 2 Hinds that are also unpainted. Well, they're undercoated, but obviously unpainted. So let me just bring one of those in. So here we have a Hind that's been undercoated. I'm not sure if I'm going to paint these straight away, but they will get done, and that will finish off my Russians, and I should be able to. I think I need to get a bit of terrain in before I can have a game. I need like some extra trees and maybe a few extra buildings and some sort of road system, modern road system, because I only have like sort of 28mm roads. Although I do have some that are kind of smallish for the 28mm side, so perhaps they could be used as roads. But they haven't got like any white lines or something like that. So they're theoretically they could be modern roads because they're double-sided, so you can turn them over. One side they're sort of tarmacked, on one side they're sort of like a muddy road. Yeah, so that's the Hinds, and these guys are magnetised. They have the magnetised rotors, which is quite handy, so you can take the rotors off. And they also have the magnetised stand, like the Apaches, although the Apaches don't have magnetised blades, but they're a lot smaller than the Hinds. The Hinds are quite dominant in the size of their rotor blades, but yeah, a really nice model anyway. But like I say, I haven't got around to actually painting some Hinds yet. Now I may as well just finish off the video by showing you the 2 flagfots that I've done so far. I decided again to go for my own camouflage scheme. I decided to go for, I basically was looking around and found a colour scheme that I liked. This is the scheme that I went for. It's pretty basic. It's just literally 2 colours, but I really liked it. I thought it was quite striking, and you can see also that I haven't bothered putting the shark tooth markings on these, but I'm pretty chuffed with how they turned out. They're sort of deserty enough, but they probably could still be used in a European setting. And of course they have the blue underbelly and the weapon set out of the 2 rocket pods, 2 guided missiles, and 2 little bombs on the side there, and of course the polyvinyl gloss varnish on the cockpit to make it shine. And yeah, it's pretty chuffed with how they turned out. Actually, brush painted. They were undercoated with an airbrush, but they were all hand painted, and I think they came out pretty cool actually. So that's one, and here's the second. Again, same sort of camouflage. And what I'll probably do is, because I have like the other 2, I'll probably do those 2 in a different scheme. But yeah, I was pretty chuffed with how these guys turned out. So that is the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with whatever I decide to paint next. It's probably not going to be Napoleonics. I think I'm basically going to force myself to take a few months off of Napoleonics. But like I say, I have actually got a couple of cavalry divisions on the books. One a division for the French, and a brigade for the British. So that'll be quite interesting. I've actually got well, I suppose 3 out of the 4 units of cavalry I need for my French division. I've got basically the metal chasseurs cheval, metal lancers, and I'm actually going to use, I haven't decided actually yet. I mean, I want to use them just because I've got them. I mean, I've got like these warlord guys that came in the starter set, these lancers. I mean, on sort of face value, they don't actually look too bad. I mean, the horses are quite nice. The swords are a little bit on the thin side, but they're probably mostly going to have lances, so that shouldn't make any difference. The lances obviously are plastic, and you've got to do the flag design yourself. But I suppose you could trim that off, swap it for a paper one. I don't know, but at the moment I kind of think I'm going to use them, but who knows? I could change my mind. But yeah, that's the sort of the plan at the moment. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, thanks again for a few more subscribers. I'm sure the reason you joined was probably for Napoleonics, and you just happened to hit me at the end of that mass project. I've actually got a whole bunch of stuff I could be painting. I've got like Dead Man's Hand, I've got the Carnivale starter set. I've got the Torbrook set starter set. I've got Cruel Seas. I've got Core Space. I've got loads of stuff I could be painting. I've even got some model kits I could be doing. I've actually got like I'll just quickly show you this one because it's I actually decided to pick this up. This is like totally off the tracks for me. Now the reason you've heard me talk about kits before, that I always like model kits with like figures in. I always have done since I was a kid, and if a model kit came without a pilot in, I basically would have actual trouble building that kit. Now, when I saw this, I mean, this is like part of their vintage classics. So I think the model actually dates from like before I was born. I think it's like 1971 or something. I wonder if it actually says 1972. There you go. So I was born in '73. So this kit was originally older than me. Now, I think only once in my life I've ever tried to build a car kit, and it just turned out miserable. And of course, the trouble that I had was like the suspension, because you had to sort of build all the suspension up using little tiny thin bits of plastic, and it basically ended up being a complete disaster. And I've never ever built a car model before that. And I don't think I even finished it. So why would I decide to pick up a car kit, basically? Well, the answer is quite simple, is that it comes with two people. Now, when I first saw like a review of this, and I actually saw these two figures, the thing that sort of jumped into my mind was that they kind of look like characters from Scooby-Doo. So like this guy kind of looks a bit like Fred, and this guy kind of looks a bit like Daphne. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to like do the beach buggy in like Scooby-Doo colours, and I'm going to sort of trim off this guy's moustache and basically, you know, turn him into Fred and turn her into Daphne and just make it into like sort of Scooby-Doo beach buggy. I thought that would be quite cool. So yeah, I don't know if I'll do that straight away, but that's something to. I mean, it's quite a small kit. It's not particularly difficult to build, which is probably a good thing because, like I say, I haven't got high hopes for my modelling ability on any sort of car. But that's just something again a little bit out of the ordinary for me, which may be some fun to do. So yeah, I'll bring this video to an end at last, and I'll catch you all in the next one. So until then, bye bye.